Everything you need to know about products and services that can improve your life. This is Experts on Call on CL 650.
You're as cold as ice. You're willing to sacrifice our love.
And we're back. This is Experts on Call on CIL 650. I'm Joanne Sutton. Today we're talking about insurance, and joining us in the studio from Intact Insurance, Canada's largest insurance company, is Patrick Magnuson, along with Keith Story and Andrew Tablotny of Laguerre Pelling Insurance. So today we're talking specifically about winter weather and what to prepare for and what the impact is that it could all have on our lives. So let's start this portion of the show talking about your car. So, panel, there's a fairly simple 6-point checklist to get your car ready for winter weather. Can we go through that?
Sure. Well, I guess the as a broker, we get asked this question often: do I need snow tires? And people they think that there's a misnomer that all weather tires means you can drive in all weather, and that is totally incorrect. The snow tires are required when the temperature gets down to 7 degrees Celsius. The temperature of the rubber will change and creates a different kind of attraction on the street, so on the pavement. So you do need snow tires when it gets colder, even just for cold, but specifically for snow. You're not obligated to have snow tires. I mean, if you have an accident on the streets and you don't have snow tires, it's not going to impact you. But if you go traveling on the highways and it says you need chains and or snow tires, and you do, then there's potential that you could end up with a serious issue on your hands. So.
Because I think they just changed those regulations within the last year or so on some of the highways throughout British Columbia that it was mandatory from a certain date in time.
October 1st, I believe, until sometime in April. It depends on which highways are, and it used to be snow tires, and I think we need to get away from the terminology of snow tires because it really has nothing to do with being on snow. We should really be calling them cold weather tires or something along those lines. That's our mindset we need to put ourselves in, because even if it's rainy, if it's 6 degrees, you really do need winter tires or cold weather tires or whatever you want to call it. Those tires that would traditionally be called snow tires.
The rubber's softer, so it provides you with more traction, whereas your all season are going to be a harder rubber.
Mm-hmm. Tire pressure also very important too.
Yeah, you make sure you check all your tires on a regular basis, and including your spare, because if you have a flat, your spare is going to be what's going to be protecting you. So,
particularly in winter, if you have fluctuating temperatures, it can really seem to reduce your pressure, and it's good to keep your eye on them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to suggest this in general because the last place you want to figure out how to change your tire is in the middle of the night, pouring rain or snowing heavily.
Or at the summit on the Coquihalla.
Summit on the Coquihalla, and I've done it in worse places than that. But is to do a dry run in your driveway, understand how all the bits and pieces of your jack work, and how to get the tire out and get a new one on.
Yeah. And teach your kids to do it too. It could be a good family project.
Absolutely. And where to put the jack and the right point on the car, and
But it never amazes me, to see people. It's always a joke in Vancouver. We get 2 inches of snow and the city shuts down because people don't know how to drive in it, but they don't have the proper tires on. So I mean, as I say, it's not mandatory, but I mean, it's like putting locks on your house. I mean, it's not mandatory to have locks on your door, but it's just kind of common sense that these are the sort of things you have to do.
It's helpful. So checklist for the car. What else can we talk about?
Well, you also it's important to see. So having proper wiper blades would be is advisable. So make sure that if they're having a little bit of difficulty now in the fall clearing all the stuff up, they're going to have a lot of difficulty once they get a little bit of heavy snow on there.
Well, they might have got cracked and dry from this horribly hot weather we had all summer.
That's right. I mean, I live in Kelowna, so I'm used to a hot 30, 40 degree summer, and basically I have to replace my wiper blades every year. You guys have had a Kelowna-like summer this year, so chances are you're going to need to replace your wiper blades. Mm-hmm. And the other part that goes with that is your windshield washer fluid. When it comes to winter, you're not so concerned about clearing those bugs off. You really don't want that windshield washer fluid to be freezing when it's on there. So get a good winter washer fluid and put that in there.
And then any basic car inspections or?
Well, depending on
radiator fluid,
how capable you are. I mean, you can do a lot of these things yourselves, but we suggest that you should look at going to a mechanic and just having them do a quick winter checklist for you. Check your battery, make sure that it's properly up to snuff, and after 2 or 3 years they can become an issue. And the last thing you want is especially when we see all the examples, and we feel kind of blessed to live out here, but we see pictures of Winnipeg where people are plugging their batteries into the chargers because it gets so cold that they won't turn over. So but the same thing is here. We get a cold snap here, and if you've got an older battery, it can create problems for you. So then you're looking at either getting your neighbor to jumpstart you or get somebody else to come out and help.
Well, I think, Patrick, you mentioned earlier, like some of these things seem like common sense, but we don't always think of them.
No, of course not. And when I think of preparing yourselves for winter, there's sort of three things. There's preparing your car, there's preparing yourself, and then there's preparing sort of your plan. So we've talked about the car, and there's a few basic things, whether it's winter tires, having it inspected by a certified mechanic who can make sure it's winterized.
Getting a tune-up, check the battery.
Sure, yeah, and then prepare yourself. So, I'm going to get the other one is prepare your plan. So, if you're going to go from point A to point B, there's really no excuse in this day and age to not know what the weather is going to be like on that route. So
we all talk about the weather. We're inundated with it on the radio and through other media sources as well. Like we pretty well know if there's a storm coming and when it's going to hit within a 10-minute window.
Yeah. So if you don't need to go and there's a good chance of a storm, maybe don't go.
Don't go. That would be the fatherly advice.
That should be an option, is don't go.
I can actually speak to that. I was, last year, my son was in a tournament in Kamloops, and right around the time where the heavy snow came, and they ended up shutting the Coquihalla down for a short period of time. We stayed over. I was hell-bent on going home that night, but it was pushing snow with the bumper, and I thought, well, that's only going to get worse by the time I hit the summit. And so we got up first thing the next morning and probably should have stayed as well. We managed to get through. I do have all-wheel drive, but I'll comment on that all-wheel drive gives you traction but does not help you stop. But as we got over the top of the summit, my wheels had collected so much snow that they became out of alignment or out of balance. And I had this horrible, and nowhere to pull off. Because the lane was what I was driving on.
It's a single lane.
Yeah, and somebody actually did try to pull off and ended up in a snowbank, and required tow. They couldn't get out. They were right up on high centered. So if you don't need to go, one more day, couple hours, probably not that big a deal.
Sure, put it off. Let the snowplows or whoever come through and look after the.
Do a little cost benefit as most things in your life, and decide, well, is it worth me trying to power through this storm? Do I need to be the hero, or can I just relax in the hotel?
Many years ago when I had first bought a Saturn, and driving my Saturn in the winter, and I grew up in Montreal, and I had great defensive driving skills and familiar with driving in snow and ice, and it was a girls' weekend up in Kamloops. We're going skiing in Sun Peaks. And, I didn't have a father around at the time to ask fatherly advice. So I phoned the owner of the dealership because I wasn't sure how the car would handle. It was a new car. So I phoned the owner of the dealership and said, Dan, I'm going to drive this car along the Fraser Canyon. I'm not doing the Coquihalla. What would you suggest? And he said, if you were my daughter, I would say stay home. And I said, what if I load up the trunk with all the things I need, like a shovel or a bag of kitty litter or whatever it is? And he said, well, it sounds like you're going to go. Just make sure you're prepared. So what are some other ways we could be prepared if we still choose to drive in the winter weather?
That was my third one. So we prepared the car, we prepared our plan, and we got to prepare ourselves. So first and foremost, we should have an emergency kit in the trunk. And we should have an emergency kit in the trunk of our car all year round.
Yeah.
And that should include things like maybe a fire extinguisher, a hazard triangle, or warning flares. I know not everybody is comfortable having a bunch of flares in their trunk, but certainly a few triangles to put out there just so people, if you're stuck on a corner, you can put those out so people know that you're going to be there. Some blankets, obviously a tire gauge. Keith was alluding it to earlier, having a spare tire, jack, and of course the lug wrench, knowing how to use it.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and of course jumper cables. That goes back to the if your battery is going to be in trouble.
Sure.
Possibly even a booster pack if you think you're going to be in some cold weather.
Yeah.
And of course flashlight, and one of the most overlooked things, some warm weather clothing, whether it's gloves, toque, a jacket, sweater, something like that. Because even if it is the summer, it can be cool at night wherever you are.
Well, and a blanket. And the blanket's
Blanket.
handy. Blanket's handy, 'cause even if it's not for you. But I've had cases where I've seen an accident. People go into shock. Blankets, a well thought of item to be there. So,
And a standard bottle of water, right?
It's a bottle, yeah. And of course, the other thing with the blanket is if you are changing the tire on the side of the road, you may just want to kneel on it.
Yeah,
If
absolutely.
you're wearing dress pants or something.
The other thing is, when you're traveling, especially at winter, it's lesser degree in summer. It's not a big an issue. But I mean, if for some reason you should end up off the road, and we see these stories, movies where people are missing for 18 days, and they create great movies of the week episodes. But things like having food, energy bars there, so that if you're going to be stuck for a day or something, you've got something to subsist on. Your water, first aid kit in case something happens. Even a seatbelt cutter. They've got these ones now where it's a cutter and a thing that can smash the window. So if you have to, you can actually use that as well.
And this is not just for huge long hauls. If you're driving to Alberta or even like 5 hours to Kelowna, it could be just your trip up to Squamish, right?
Yeah.
Down to Seattle or whatever it may be, over to the island.
You hit some black ice and you're gone. And if there's nobody else on the road to see it, you're down an embankment and you're there for a while.
So talking about insurance and in particular winter weather, what to prepare for, we're definitely into the fall season. For many people, annual and season-ending chores are in full swing. Rake the leaves, clean the gutters, get the furnace prepared for winter. But seasonal chores aren't limited to homeowners. Car owners should also include these winterizing essentials to their end-of-the-year to-do list. What kind of things would be on that list? Like winter driving?
Well, I'd say one of the things that is important to do in winter, and it's maybe something that we take a little bit for granted, is don't let your tank get empty. Make sure it's at least half full, and top it up if you need to. First of all, it makes the hit at the tank seem a little bit easier, but more importantly, you're not going to get anything freezing in there. And if you are going to go somewhere where it maybe northern BC or God forbid Alberta or Saskatchewan, where it really does get super cold, consider Gasline antifreeze, just to make sure that the gas doesn't sort of get gelled and it can be more difficult for it to perform. And
just like when you get a lot heavy snow on your house, you need to get up there and clear some of the snow off. When you're driving, clear your car off. Don't we see people driving around with
6 inches of snow,
a foot and a half of snow on the top of their car, and is blowing out blowing the guy behind. The guy behind's is driving through a snowstorm because it's all blowing off his
and
roof.
Don't just sweep it off the roof. Clean off like where your headlights are and your rear brake lights, and
clean off the whole car quickly. But that comes back to making sure you have a snow brush, because when you're using your Amex, the amount of visibility you're going to get there is a little bit less.
It's okay, hands up. How many have scraped their windshields with a credit card? Doesn't everybody do that at some point?
Yeah. Usually
do.
that first snowfall of the season.
Yeah.
There was actually kind of an interesting statistic here from an ICBC survey that almost 4 in 10 respondents feel less confident driving during the winter. In addition, 7 in 10 feel less safe and frustrated by the actions of other drivers. We don't always have control of what the other drivers are like on the road, but I think you've made your point about being prepared.
Be prepared, and the one I guess is to slow down. Leave a little bit of extra time for wherever you're going to go. It's better to sit at the hockey rink for 10 minutes longer or whatever the case. So just drive a little bit slower, leave a little bit more space, and give yourself that extra time.
If you're like me, I always set my wife's watch 10 minutes ahead so that she thinks she's on time. But she's always late, so that way we're actually on time.
I don't know if that's good or mean, Andrew. Anyhow, gentlemen, we will continue this conversation. Experts on Call on CL 650, and we're talking about winter driving tips, winter preparedness tips for the car, for the home, for your person. We'll be right back. But in the meantime, if you want more information, you can always go to the website intact.ca. Don't go away.
This is Experts on Call on CIL 650.